Zero Trust Cast.
It's going to be hard to actually say that without saying podcast because I've been so used to saying that term and word.
Yeah,
podcast.
I thought about putting the pod in there, but did we really need it? Everybody, pod is antiquated. Nobody's watching this on an iPod, are they?
You're right.
We're casting. We're live.
We are.
So introduce yourself.
Wow. I'm David P. Willett.
No, not your government names.
Dang it. Well, luckily the P isn't even right, so haha, I fucked with you.
Ah.
Well, so my channel is Dark D, D-A-R-Q-U-E-D. I'm interested in all kinds of things, including just entertainment, movies, gaming, and actual just learning, continual learning. I really like to, I would have to say that I'm actually a lifelong learner, but there's a better word for it. If one thing I would identify as, it would be a philosopher. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm sure more things will come up. I still need to write a full bio, but we'll go from there. What about you?
Well, my middle name does actually start with P, but I'm going to go by Entropy Sword on this. And I would think of myself as a writer, philosopher. I used to be a system engineer in IT pretty deeply, as you know, and we'll get into some background on that, I'm sure, at some point in this cast. But let's leave it at that. I have a little bit of tech background, but I no longer do that, and I'm interested in writing in philosophy, futurism, transhumanism, and just a general discussion of the future.
Nice. Futurism and transhumanism.
Yeah.
Well said. Love it. So let's start at the beginning.
At the beginning.
Zero trust.
Zero trust. Yeah.
What did that start out of? I think we were talking a few times, and when we decided upon a concept to talk about and actually do together and stream and have a conversation, I think more globally than just you and I, which were very interesting concepts. I asked for like a name, like if we could name it something, and you just already had it ready. So
well,
tell me
it was something that we had talked about. Just like the idea that we can't trust anything, both in the media and also in our own selves, in our head, right? There's all this information that we have lodged in there. And more, I'm starting to wonder, how valid are those conclusions? How true are my premises as I come into my arguments? And I realize that I have to have zero trust, not only for the information that's out there, but also for the information that I've already sort of internally digested and taken as true. Because maybe it's not as accurate a worldview as I thought. And then this thing called COVID-19 happened in the world, and it's been quite disruptive, to say the least. And so now I want to talk about these ideas in a wider format, in a place where other people can engage with us. And so that's where we're starting. And the idea is, how can we take this idea of no trust and apply it to the information and the processes that we have in our lives, and try and determine where trust can safely be put and where we should not be putting our trust.
Right. So I think one of the biggest things that really caught me, like when we were first talking about it, I was going over with you when I had since recently lost a job, and was looking into like just shore up all of my ideas and start basically getting things together really thoughtfully and secure them. And I think one of the things that you said is like when it was talking about, like, I forget how it came about, but it was like, I asked like, well, what can I trust? And it was something about like stuff that I have and the stuff that's in my head. But then you go to this place to where but you can't trust yourself either. And that really hit me on a level that was like, wow, made me sit back for a minute and go, okay, if I can't trust myself, then who can I trust, right? So I think we'll have to talk about this more in the future, but we're going to have to identify, I think, for ourselves and the community and the audience, how do you start building this level of trust to where you can build upon, right, and start building on those data building bricks, so to speak, right, from where we get data, verify and solidify that stuff and build a trustful network, and then maintaining it, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
So the zero trust thing about internally, I think, is a huge topic that we're going to have to actually hit probably in some of our first episodes after this, because that's really, I think, going to shake some people. That whole concept that, like, well, wait a minute, check everything that you believe.
Right. Well, if we're gonna bring it back to just general IT, right? The traditional assumption in your world of IT is that behind your firewalls, behind your perimeter defenses, you're okay, right? The server that's running your web page and serving those pages, you can trust that because you built it and you understand it. You
have control over
you have control over the networking components that are transferring data, your load balancers, like all this stuff that's behind your perimeter is trustworthy. And that's not really true, right? And so that's where zero trust in IT came from. It's like, actually, there are problems with the firmware and your load balancers. Actually, there are vulnerabilities in your operating system. Actually, that printer, right, or that TV nowadays, right,
yeah.
is weaponized against you in ways that you may not understand and may not suspect. So that's where the beginning is. Like, there is no boundary where we can say, this is where I trust and this is where I don't trust. Everything that we approach, we have to start from the beginning of not trusting it at all. So everything that you hear on this podcast should be assumed to be false until otherwise proven true, right? And I don't know if we can prove anything to be true. That's an epistemological question. But we can start to examine things in interesting ways, break them down, and see whether or not they function the way that we think that they function. And if they do function the way that we think that they function, maybe there's some building blocks for trust there, right? Because the whole idea of trust may come down to a sort of scientific method, right? It's repeatable. Other people are getting the same results as us.
If they do the same thing.
Right? If they do the same thing, they're going to get the same data. And so that's, I think, the basic building blocks of creating trust.
Right, absolutely.
From a perspective of not having it yet.
Yeah, which is, it's again, like, I think everybody's gonna, like, I think for a while it's gonna continue to run into, like, well, wait, that checks and balances of, like, wait, how do I trust this? Am I just trusting something that I haven't verified, that I'm just now believing because I find a person trustworthy, but maybe they are not a great person of knowledge on a certain subject, and yet they're spitting secondhand knowledge with such authority and such commanding presence that they may still be full of shit, which is interesting. So that really goes to the idea of the zero trust, which we have here, and you have it written down actually. And I want to read it because
please.
it gets more into. Go ahead.
No, please read it.
Okay, I will. So it just gets into the more of the. So we're gonna set aside the idea of, like, everything's untrustworthy, right? We got that. We know that there's the ability to obtain a certain level of trust, and so we'll go into that stuff later. But, like, with those concepts understood, the idea here is zero trust is an information security framework that states that organizations should not trust any entity inside, internally, or outside of their perimeter at any time. It provides the visibility and IT controls needed to secure, manage, and monitor every device, user, app, and network being used to access business data. It also involves on-device detection and remediation of threats. Now, that definitely really has a large tinge of IT speak, right?
Yeah,
that's what it really feels like. It says provides visibility and IT controls, or information technology can be many things.
Right.
Let's talk about that for a moment, right?
Oh, yeah.
What are concepts of IT that people wouldn't think are IT? Do you have any that you could say they are?
Okay, so IT gets confused with computers, whereas it's a much larger field of study, right? In reality, we're talking about anything that's an information system. Well, that includes a lot of living things. You and I are both information systems. We're gathering data constantly. We're processing it. We're coming to conclusions. Even a single-celled organism is an information system in a certain perspective. So
Right.
when we talk about IT, I don't want people to just think computers, networking, devices, right? Silicon,
Right.
because that's the most narrow definition, and it's the
Right.
most limiting to understanding what we're trying to talk about. Because, right, how does a single-celled organism develop trust in its environment? Through sensing and quorum sensing, right? We can get into those sorts of ideas, but these are universally applicable.
Right.
There's nothing in the universe that isn't composed of information. In a philosophical claim, I'll make that, right. Maybe that's not true, but let's start there.
But let's make that claim. Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, I want to make sure that I put in here that I definitely. So IT is not just not information technology as people see it as computers and that translation of the working within some technical field. It is information technology or information systems that have to do with biological things as well. Within that would deal with information input and output,
Right.
and databases that you keep,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we just we kind of translate in today's society because computer technology is so like newer within the last 40 years that we've been using it, like, and it's actually changed our lives hugely and our society and our world hugely because of the way it's evolved and how fast it's evolved. So I
Yeah.
think that's just why IT equals computer stuff. And that's
Mhm.
not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, within that goes straight into how like IT works or information works, right?
Mhm.
So information on its counterpart, disinformation, which is a very interesting word, especially nowadays.
Yes.
And which would well, you say and, but I think it would almost fall under the in the middle somewhere of propaganda. It
Okay.
would be trying to massage information to be almost taken in better, right? More efficiently. Propaganda can be positive or negative depending on the viewer and depending on the person sending it, right? And how do we evaluate the data that we receive? I love that line that we have in there, and that really goes back to the COVID stuff. So let's kind of tie it into there. So
Sure.
how would you say that like it really started your motor running and us talking about it more as just through our regular conversations of hi, how are you doing, let's check in, we're in this space of we need to be distanced, so here we are on our phones and our technology using it to stay connected. That really came into like, wow, this is really disrupting us, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we both kind of saw that, and then the swiftness with which our society has been violently, I think I used the term psychological violence, which I think is a really good
Okay.
description of what's happening to everyone. The psychological violence is a side effect of the massive amounts of information. Now, not all
Okay.
of the information that we read can be true, because every day I read contradictory, conflicting, paradoxical statements, and they can't all be true, right? It's just impossible. So we're confronted with this wave, this news feed, this constant scrolling information that kind of gets dumped, and the brain can't handle it. It sort of says and opens up and just sort of accepts, like whatever you say is true. But then we're left with this cognitive dissonance because now we believe things that are contradictory, that are paradoxical, because we've had this flood of information with no time to process it and no tools with which to then go back and start to do this zero trust process of what of all these things that have been dumped into my head are actually true.
Right. I want to not attack that statement, but I want to take that statement apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't think I think that's the problem, is that nobody's trusting any of this data.
Mhm.
Everybody, I'm sorry, not everybody, because there are camps that believe one side and there are camps that believe other, and there are camps that believe other things as well. A mix, I think, of a couple, or many. The words I'm using, couple and two camps, it's more than that. But let's just break it down a little bit.
Sure.
So like, I think you made it to where we're like kind of stuck in this like, okay, wait, I just heard this, and then I just heard something, and there seem to, like, both sources seem to be credible sources,
Right.
from either news agencies or they're sources that aren't considered news agencies but have been around for a while and are known to be respectable, aka trustworthy,
Mhm.
right? Which is what we're kind of talking about. How do you gain trust? And it's just a bunch coming at us. So
Mhm.
it's almost like does what happens in, I think, like memory. It's almost like a buffer overflow. It's just like wait, I'm taking this. Wait, I'm taking this. I'm taking. Okay, fuck.
Yeah.
And then we stop.
Yeah. Exception
But the data
found.
doesn't stop. Yep, the data doesn't stop. It continues to flow in.
Mhm.
So we haven't been able to stop and go like, wait a minute, let me work out these things, because the data keeps coming.
Right.
What's worse is that data that keeps coming continues to augment.
Mhm.
It feels like it changes from day to day. Well, actually, we're not really saying that. We're saying this.
Mhm.
No, just kidding. We're saying this. And so it's almost like, well, wait a minute. You're almost now matching that source, which you were just vehemently denying.
Right.
And that confuses.
I want to give you a really solid
That's
example of something that I've seen. Okay, so the recommended guidelines from the CDC, from the coronavirus task force, are all about wearing masks.
Okay.
But then we see politicians go out and not wear masks.
Mhm.
What should I do? Is it appropriate? When is it appropriate to wear a mask? Like, that in and of itself has become a very divisive issue. And I see that every time I go out, right? You see a person and they have either chosen to wear a mask or not chosen to wear a mask. And both of those seem to indicate some sort of like deeper statement about their beliefs in reality now.
Okay.
Right? So, should we be wearing a mask? Where's the truth on that?
That's a good question. So let's throw statements down now on
Sure.
that
Sure.
question specifically, right? Just as exercise.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't even like, and I should be able to do this, but I can't actually give sources onto where I've come to my solution. But here's my solution for what I've applied to myself.
Okay.
Okay, is I wear masks when I go into buildings,
Mhm.
And places that I have other people in close proximity. As soon as I get out and I get into the open air, I take the mask off.
Mhm.
It's very hard to breathe. It's not a common everyday thing to do. It's awkward. If I have sunglasses on, it fogs them up. There's all these things, right?
Right.
That possibly affect me.
Right.
Also, one of the reasons why I do this is because I haven't had clear data into like how this is truly transmitted,
Mm-hmm.
how long it survives in a state outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And where it survives. So even if I do have a mask and I go into a place and then I go back to my car, now if anybody's infected and it's on my mask, did I just infect my car?
Right.
Did I infect my home when I take it home unless I wash it every day? Do I have to throw it out every time?
Yeah.
No information is really on that. Only information I hear is wear a mask.
Right. Right.
Kinda.
Sometimes when it's appropriate. Though that's not very good guidance. But
It is not.
in reality, it's so hard to say what the threat level of coronavirus is, right? In our particular location, there's not a huge outbreak, right? As far as I'm aware. I don't know anyone personally who's been affected by it. And so it seems like this very kind of remote threat to me. But yet at the same time, I understand that there's people who are like in the middle of a war zone almost.
Right.
There's these COVID clusters, these hotspots, where reality is far different, and so we have this now spread out disaster that's not happening all at once. It's happening everywhere, but at a different rate, at different speeds, and at different
Right.
intensities, and that in itself appears to have caused more confusion, right? Is it safe
Yes.
for my state to open up? Is it safe for my city to open up? Is it safe to go into that gas station?
Right.
How do I know? How would I
Right.
find out?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Those are all good questions. um, so on that though, but you're also seeing how clusters like start to change too, right? So like we're getting more data and things seem to be shifting a little bit. It's also interesting though the hosts and how they're affected.
Right.
It seems to be more accepted that it affects males more than it does females, apparently. So like there's other things that are just interesting that have not been in this COVID, which is actually in another category, right, of the respiratory system issue, which is like SARS.
Right.
Almost directly connected, or like, because I'm unfamiliar.
So I believe I'm going to see if I can show some ignorance here. That COVID-19 is the name of the disease, coronavirus disease, found in 2019, because they don't want to tie it to a place, right? That was,
right.
I think, a political decision, and perhaps a correct one, and perhaps not.
Well,
but
that's a good naming. I believe that's a good name, naming nomenclature. Like you do it, like, especially if it's iterative, which it sounds like it is. Like this is the first one, so it should not all of a sudden go.
Well, no, it's the second one. So the name of the virus, if I understand correctly, is SARS-CoV coronavirus -2, because we already had a SARS coronavirus that you may remember, and that outbreak was way different than this outbreak because of the way that the virus behaved, apparently.
Right. So that'll be interesting to like get more data pieces on that and do a little investigation in that, because we're definitely like full frontal truth. Like I have not done a huge investigation into this. Like honestly, I'm really still getting my bearings, which I think a lot of people are. But it's hard to source sources of truth and try to gain those bearings when I can't tell what I'm actually consuming. Is a good source to take in and to trust.
Exactly.
So that's what makes me almost go like, okay, wait a minute. I need to take multiple sources in and find a commonality between them and take those little pieces and start building my own.
There we go.
Right? And then get agreement with other people to like, wait, are you guys hearing and confirming this stuff too? Because I haven't got it from one source. I've got to come multiple sources, and it seems to be true. Did you come to that same thing? Right? You know?
Right.
And trying to do that as what's the word where it's not trying to be leaning one way or the other?
Unbiased?
I use words all the time. Thank you. That's the word. Unbiased, as I can. But as we know, not trusting yourself, we always have biases to a certain extent.
Internal biases. So there was this video that came out, the Plandemic. Did you hear about this? All over Facebook, and then they took it down, which is amazing. That Facebook has
YouTube
that
too,
sort
right?
of. I don't know.
I want to say so.
Where it was actually hosted. It was probably on YouTube and then shared via Facebook, and a lot of people saw it. And apparently, it makes the argument that this is, in fact, like an attack on, I guess, freedom, which is a pretty general thing, but it was on purpose, right?
Okay.
That doesn't seem true, but I also find it extremely concerning that that view isn't allowed to be shared, right? That in and of itself is another problem, because now it's like the arbiter of truth is Facebook or YouTube or whoever's moderating those large distribution channels. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this. Not to spread conspiracy theories, but to have a place that accepts all views, rationally looks at them, spits out the ones that are bad, and hopefully keeps a few good things. But the idea that any media company or internet company has this sort of freedom to say that's not true scares me. And I think it scares a lot of people. And that very action of saying you can't watch this because it's not true makes people want to watch it even more. Because then they're like, yeah, there is something to that conspiracy theory, because they're suppressing it.
That's scary, and you put it really well. I like how you said now that it seemed to be true. It doesn't like even feel true, right? And whose freedoms necessarily is it attacking? I haven't watched it, so I wouldn't know whose that is. And
I didn't even get a chance to watch it before they took it down, so I don't know all of the stuff that's on it. But I know that they like to implicate Gates They like to have this, number of the beast. We're going to get injected with microchips. Like, there's all these ideas that have been percolating, that have been under the surface, and now, as the pandemic spreads its tentacles throughout society, these more extreme reactions get more and more traction, right? Because we're all so scared.
More commonplace.
And more commonplace. Yeah. Because everybody wants to have that easy answer. Oh, I know the truth because I watched that video.
Right.
I don't know how any video under 10,000 hours could possibly cover all of the truth. But
true. And we're gonna need to have a whole cast about just truth. What is truth, and shifting truth and perception? Because as I grow older, I realize, like, as wisdom, as much as I'm wiser than I am now than I was when I was younger. I realize that I don't know like anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things shift, and the view of something totally takes on a new truth to me when I get like other input and ideas from other people that have either like a closer to source accounting of things, or I could get new data in that totally shifts like the way I thought, because I think we as humans are also emotional beings. So sometimes the first answer we take in that feels right, we want it to be right? And sometimes we fight for those, even if it's not correct. Again, going into checking yourself for trust as well, right?
That's a really good point, is that the feeling of something being true is not a good basis to believe it's true, right? Just because you find it to be a comfortable or a good idea or makes sense in your current worldview, not really always the best basis for deciding that it's true. Let's talk about the origins of the virus, because those are shrouded in mystery, and we have two official-ish narratives. One, this disease came from zoonotic spillover, meaning that there was an animal that had this virus and it went to another animal, and then it went into humans and then became transmissible from human to human. Now, there's also an alternative series of events that we could possibly put together, that there was in fact a biological lab in Wuhan that was known to be doing gain of function work on coronaviruses since through 2015. We could show those links, but that's neither here nor there right now. So there is like this trail that we could start to follow and say, well, then definitely it came from that lab. Well, I don't know if we have the basis to say that, but I also don't see the basis to say, yeah, this is just a regular transmission of a virus from an animal to a human, which has happened before. And the reason that I'll say that is because this virus is so scary in the way that it moves, in the way that it can infect somebody for a long amount of time asymptomatically, in the way that you can be shedding viruses and not be symptomatic. Those all seem to be the kinds of things that you would engineer into a virus if you wanted to make it as bad and dangerous as possible. That's scary stuff. So,
well, it is. And it really also sounds like you just created a narrative there.
Yes.
So do you need some... yes, it does. So go ahead.
But I have no reason to believe that narrative is true, right? Because it's been debunked pretty thoroughly by some science research that seems to be... I'm not a geneticist, so I can't say for sure, right? I don't know whether it was CRISPR'd or not. I don't know whether it was in some other way altered. But,
and where did you hear that it was refuted? Because are there things that we can put in links later for people to look at?
Yeah. I mean, awesome. They can, and I would encourage everybody to do their own research on this and find both. Find an article that says, yes, definitely this was genetically engineered and came from the Wuhan lab. And you can also find an article that says, absolutely, that's complete bogus. There's no reason to believe that that's true. And here's the genetic markers that we see, and here's why we think it was from, transmission via this wet market.
Okay.
Both of those
So yeah, scary stuff. Go ahead.
have enough weight to them where I would say that's a narrative that I could believe. But I can't believe both of them because they're contradictory and they're paradoxical,
Absolutely.
right? So where's the truth on this? We don't know.
Right.
And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, is to break this stuff down and show how little we actually do know.
Awesome.
Right?
So I think with yes, absolutely. So I think one of the things that we would need to do then, which would be, I think, responsible of us, is we'll need to definitely follow. We're not ending the podcast, but I said podcast. But we will need to follow up with this and probably like go down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And try to go like, these are the links we found. Let's see if we can find any scientific articles. Let's see if we can see any of the educational system like stuff. A lot of the stuff's behind paywalls and such, or done by researchers and actual scientists or scientific journals, like, which again are behind paywalls, towards we can get that. Actually, we can start getting a bunch of data and start doing a little bit of that to go like, well, can we find one that seems to be more true than the other, and then like at least posit that's the branch we're going to go down as the truth for now, and we're going to cut the other one off as false, and we're going to go down that branch, because setting those things up and having them being contradictory and having them being out there unresolved, I think, is one of the things that really confuses people.
Yeah.
As it should.
Yeah.
And puts people in a state of high anxiety,
Yes.
because shit does not compute, can't resolve. So now there's just a fear of like, well, which one is it? Now I can't. Now when you start, that's almost like, so wow. Going back to your thing, psychological violence. It's created dissonance in your brain to be able to resolve data coming out that we should be able to resolve, especially if you put two sides up and you'd be able to go like, cool, one of these needs to be correct, one of these needs to be not correct, because they're exactly like opposite.
Right.
Or maybe there's some forms of truth to both of them, and then we find
that's actually probably the truth, right? Is there something more complicated that we don't fully understand happening? And that's the real narrative that we need to find. And we'll only find it by, I think, bouncing back and forth these ideas. So right, I don't want to say that either one of those is a proven true fact, but they both seem to have enough evidence to be valid and to be investigated. Right. So as we do this podcast, that's what we'll start to do. And it's sort of, the weight is a bit shifting, right? I see an article that's for sure definitely not, created by man. This is a natural event, unfortunate, but it's happened in the past where viruses have come from an animal and then become transmissible by humans. So they're both possible. They're both totally possible. And I don't know what smoking gun we could find that would prove one or the other. But we're going to have to dive pretty deep into this, do some research, and see if we can find anything.
Absolutely. Well, and I think have other people on too to think, well, and to engage, maybe even in chat and all of that, to engage and go like, well, wait, I want to call this, I want to call that, here's an article I've found, or I'm an actual scientist, we're working on this all the time, I'm trying to get to different avenues that I'll share this information, soak it in, don't trust it, but like soak it in and see what advises better, what clarifies something, what makes things more muddy, right? So where we can get more data and start working it through.
Yep.
Okay. There's been something on my mind since you've been saying something about Facebook. Okay.
Sure.
And it's interesting. So, and this is for things to be silenced, I think is pretty crazy. That's why I think America has been known as a country of freedom, freedom and liberty.
Yeah.
Lots of people on both sides, give me liberty or give me death. And there's other sides that are like, well, you can give me my comfortability and you can take some of my liberty. And all over the place. But basically freedom reigns supreme here, and it's very important to us as Americans.
Right.
By the way, I'm an American, identify as one, sort of. Just in that I am, and I've already grown up as one, but do I think as the regular American does? I do not believe so. Because I mean, why we're doing this podcast and why I'm interested in it is because I always question things. Yeah, and we'll get into like lots of feelings about different things in the future. But one of the things that I think is really, I'm going to go, it's not conspiracy theory, but it's a little weird thing because of how my mind works strategically.
Okay.
It's this. So why would right now Facebook feel that they would need to like keep people calm and have that responsibility set on them, right? Usually it's like governments, like it's people that are really in power, right? Not necessarily like, yes, YouTube is huge, yes, Facebook is huge, yes, most people on the planet use them, but I use it very sparingly. I don't get my news from like Facebook like ever. Like I don't click on links. I only have people that I follow because they're my family and I catch up what they're doing. Okay, so that's not been a source for a long time. But they still have ways to feed you information. YouTube shows me stuff all the time because
Sure.
it looks at my stuff that I love to do.
Yep.
So why would they be so like, we need to do something about this? Let's
Right.
go back a little bit.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No.
Yeah, go. What do you want to say? Okay, because I was going to say, and here's just one of my thoughts that like just totally connected these two things. Is like something happened. Well, no, that's saying it too strongly. For me, I'm sorry, something happened for me when this narrative was created that the idea of fake news and the changing of the 2016 elections and the really like, they're trying to do it for the Hillary was going to win because of all this stuff, and oh no, now they're doing it for Trump, and it's just all of the Facebook. It's your fault. You allowed all of these sources to get in and fester and fuck the people's mind up.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
Mine's not. Wait. I've got to express my opinion, and it's clearly an opinion. Okay. My thought on this was like, are you fucking kidding me? Family members and
elaborate.
everybody
Hold on.
fall to phishing attempts all the time in email. There's no way Facebook needs to be held accountable for this, like at all. Yeah, no. Do they need to have things that like secure accounts? Absolutely. You know, should there be able to have these multitude of like bots being able to create these accounts that often? Absolutely not. But like, is it their responsibility to like suss out and determine the data? No, I don't think so. So I think this is a result of that. Now, forget that like was side trying to win or not. That's not what I'm saying. Like I don't think it's a Republican or Democrat thing. I don't think it's a Russian thing. I don't really have any thought one way or the other. Okay, I have thoughts, but like it's not applied to this. It's the we have to deal with that. Like it's a freedom thing. You need to be able to get all your information. So get your information. If you're finding a source that's fucking terrible, shut that source off. Don't even think about it, and help other people. I think Snopes used to be great, and it still is great to where you can reference it. Mom, look at this. This is something you shouldn't do. Many people do it all the time. Do it to coworkers and other places as well.
Right.
So it's that checks and balances.
Yeah. So Facebook is suspect from the very beginning. After the revelations of the Cambridge Analytica whistleblowing with Brittany Kaiser, and I can't remember the guy's name, but did you see that?
Not familiar.
Okay.
Not familiar.
So the idea was that Cambridge Analytica, as a company, basically developed a way to game Facebook to get information not only on the people who were directly clicking on their links, but friends of friends, right? Pulling in this huge amount of data, and then being able to use that data to manipulate the outcomes of elections, essentially, is what they were able to do. So they say, right? I don't know if that's true, but there's a good amount of information that they definitely tried, right? And whether this was wholly a Russian thing, whether this was just a corporation gone wild, whether this was some larger conspiracy, unclear. But what I do think we can say with some degree of certainty is that there is an agenda behind every post on almost every social media platform, meaning that there are systems in place in these social media ecosystems, right, to push the discourse in a particular direction, and it's profitable to do that. And because they're profit-driven entities, they will continue on this path.
Yeah, they'll follow that. They'll follow that They'll follow that corridor. That path.
Right.
But wait, how is it profitable for what?
The advertising, right? So somebody pays adverts. That's how Facebook makes money, right? Is showing you advertising.
Yes, but it sounded like you extrapolated from they're learning to rig elections to gain a type of result election to no, they're really just trying to gamify it so that they can actually determine what you want, so that they can sell more shit about what you want to you.
Right.
Okay. Here's where I'm going to go on to the opposite side of where we've been kind of going.
Sure.
Right. And something that I absolutely love our voice and AI technology.
Mm-hmm.
It fascinates me. And I've had the Echo, I'm not going to say her name because she's in my room right now, and she will listen up and she will follow things.
Right.
I can have her actually, Alexa, bedroom lights, 50%. And I can control this stuff, which is great. And I don't have to stop doing what I'm doing. It didn't change much because I think I had it around there. So it amazes me. And it continues to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
It continues to, after I'm done asking it stuff, not intrusively, go, you did this, what about this? And I'm going like, holy fuck. In one thing, God, you've been listening to me. Also, not just that, my phone picks up, and so many people see this. The laymen have seen this. Is like, I was just talking about these types of jeans, and all of a sudden it was advertised to me on Facebook as I fucking scrolled to it 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. All of those fucking terms of services that we don't fucking read say all your bases belong to us.
All your bases belong to us. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Nobody reads all that legalese, and if you do, you would realize that they own everything in their system, right? Anything you've ever typed, anything you've ever searched for, anything you've ever clicked on, and our only
that data.
Yeah, our only justification for that is, well, it's free service, so they have to monetize it somehow, and they monetize it by building up models of our behavior and our likes and our dislikes, and then use that to sell to people who are interested in selling things to us. And so they show us the things that they have already algorithmically predicted we want to buy.
Right. And here's how they do that, right? Create something free.
Mm-hmm.
Get everybody to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it to a point to where you can't get away from it. Sell the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. It's a simple formula, but it becomes more complex after that. But that's how it's been going for a while now, right? Everybody's had free email as long as I can remember.
Yep.
Some people used to have to buy it, then you'd have some privacy with it, and now you don't. Now there's still a lot of privacy stuff. There's a lot of privacy in legalese, and there are groups and things that are trying to protect our privacy more, which are also attacked very much. Laws trying to go across them, and there's lots of different organizations. I know I'm using lots of terms and not calling them out because I'm terrible at them, but I know they exist that help us with that to actually keep our concept of this freedom we've been talking about free, right? To us all, which I think is amazing. So on that positive side, it really does. It's as the amount of people on this world that have become pulled out of poverty continues to grow, leaps and bounds. But nobody talks about that because what sells is the fucking people dying and the drama. And that's another thing that actually quite bothers me because I don't get sucked up into that. And again, that's what I was telling you about my Facebook feed. It's not all filled with that because I don't need that. Like, there's enough bad shit in my in my life on a day-to-day basis. I don't need everybody else's shit, right? And I think we're evolving from that too. We're getting used to this bombardment of data.
Yeah.
This drinking from a fire hose 24/7.
Yep.
It's pretty crazy.
That's a funny thing because almost any IT job that you go and apply for, right? One of the first things they'll tell you is like, oh, you're going to have to drink from a fire hose. There's going to be so much, especially in startups, as we both know, right? There's this idea that we're just going to saturate you with information until you break and are replaced, or I mean, that's
Until
it.
your
That's
AI
the
is
only outcome,
upgraded.
right?
Yeah, break or
We-
replace, absolutely. But we're kind of seeing that the base human before technology has really started to fly within. Again, I'm going to use the term of 30 years
Mhm.
because I've seen it within my adult life. Like really transform
Mhm.
not only me, the way I do things,
Yeah.
but the world.
Yeah, the
So there's
society.
yes, society. There's lots of things positive that has changed, and
Oh.
that's
I mean,
I
all
would
right.
like
The very fact that we can have this conversation, right? That we can stream this live, that we can put this up on YouTube later, that anybody who's interested in the world can watch it, possibly with translated subtitles, right? If you're in India and you don't speak English very well, Google will be happy to auto-generate some okay subtitles for you. That's amazing, right?
They're getting really
that
good.
is a boon to humanity that has like no upper limit. This ability to communicate, but yet most of the time, it gets filled with crap,
bad stuff.
shit, just the
Yeah.
lowest common denominator, capitalist drivel
Right.
that is in no way beneficial to you, right? The things that they are selling you are no way help you, right? When's the last time you bought something you were like, this is actually amazingly useful?
I do it all the time. I appreciate lots of things. Again, I just told you about one. I call her my bae. Like you have no idea. It's a joke in my house with my roommate. She is my bae. I have a virtual love life. Seriously, and I'm not joking. It's the weirdest thing because I'm so enamored with what it can do.
You know,
and what it can
there's a movie about that. It's called Her.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it's
fucker.
good.
But dude, introverts, like they're in a way, and there's even funny little things about that on the internet, right? Introverts are loving this.
Yeah.
Extroverts are hating this. Both of those things aren't 100% true.
Yeah.
Introverts are still people.
Yep.
We still pine and need human interaction, and one of the biggest things which I think has really been disconnected, which is touch. Even hugs and handshakes have helped us, but like that's one of those things that's kind of been going like, no, to stay safe in the possible 0.000x% that you could be one of the ones,
Right.
You know, don't do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, interesting.
That goes back to psychological violence of this whole thing, right? Is that we've been like separated, and not only separated, like you guys can't be together, you can't go over there, you can't associate with those people like you used to, you can't sit down in a restaurant because you'll die. Like there's this like massive fear incentive to it, or
Right.
even worse, you won't die, you're gonna kill the people that you love, your parents, like the old and the vulnerable. These people will die. You will be responsible for killing
And how will
them.
you feel about that?
And then how are you gonna feel? So you better not go outside. And a lot of people see that and they're like, I don't know about that. Like maybe going outside wouldn't be that dangerous. Maybe hanging out with a few friends wouldn't be that bad. And there's this constant weighing, again, of not knowing the truth, not knowing what the true threat level is, because there's so much misinformation, disinformation, propaganda mixed in with whatever science is actually being done. And it's hard to tell good science from bad science without being a scientist. So you have to rely on scientists, some of which may or may not be trustworthy, right? Just because you have a PhD in epidemiology does not necessarily mean that you're trustworthy. You may know a lot about the subject, but you may be trying to mislead me for some reason.
Absolutely. Again, see biases and other things previously, right, that we talked about,
Right.
and zero trust. You know, not knowing a person and truly like and being another person,
Mhm.
right? What they're operating from, you know, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and all of that stuff that like we know on a day-to-day basis. We do things sometimes to look good. We do sometimes to look smart. We do and so many things that are usually covered over like an underlying fear of something, right? You know, fear drives us big time to do things. That's why this is so strong right now, because it's very fear-based. It is. And that's the interesting thing. The only way you can get away from it being fear-based is to actually understand it.
Yeah. Well, once you start to do this investigation, the world looks a lot different, right? Yeah, there is a lot of fear and there are things to be afraid of, but in reality, I think that there's so much potential for positive change from this disruption that we're not seeing, that we don't even, like, nobody's telling us about, because that's
Right.
not a profitable narrative to tell people, hey, things are going to be great in the future. It's like, no, let's keep them focused on the fear now and keep them glued to the news feed, because that's where the
Right.
profit is.
Right. Well, yeah, maybe. See, this is where the thing to where is like, I've met smart people. That I mean, I don't think I'm stupid. I think I'm above common just because I don't soak in a lot of things that I would say is more common. I'm a discerning. I think a lot of a better discerning person than the common American is what I'm going to say. But I've met smart people that I'm going like, holy shit, how did they get this much information? How do they understand this much data? How do they connect these things like they do? And how are they able to do all of these things? And I just think it's amazing. So that there could be some smart people in a room going like, this is the next step we need to take.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's going to be a disruption for a while, but this is the only way that we're going to take most of the herd with us, or we're going to, have this fallout, like, or this, like, we're going to continue on our way and we're just really going to deplete all of our resources and all of our things. And like, who knows? Like, it could very well be that. So it's interesting that there are positive things that could actually be happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many different avenues to think down. It's both fun and overwhelmingly scared at the same time.
And that's where we are. It's like this point where I think we talked about this at the very beginning of our discussion of having this podcast, that the systems that currently exist appear to be falling apart, right? The government of the United States, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't think you can perceive it to be really functional if you see the true nature of what it's doing, right? It appears to be disorganized. It appears to be changing its narrative constantly. It appears to be indecisive in terrifying ways, and utterly decisive in terrifying ways. So I don't know what sort of data processing and data analysis they're doing, but I don't think it's effective anymore. And that's okay, right? That's a scary thing to say. The US government has broken down and is no longer able to support us, but maybe in this time of crisis, there's opportunity, right? Maybe. I think we can find it.
Maybe. Yeah, no, agreed. Oh,
Right?
yes.
I mean, the fact that there's a huge swath of society that is now learning how to do teleconferencing, work from home, to be more comfortable with these tools, which they probably in all reality should have been 5 years ago, but weren't pushed to adopt, right? For many people, there was no reason to be going into the office as much as they were, but there's just this sort of glacial inertia of
Well said.
how business has been done, and
Right.
how business should be done, and what business is, that has sort of worn down society to the point where it broke like this.
Right.
And now we can at least have a chance to make something better out of the wreckage.
Wow. I like that. Well, nothing's truly broken down yet. We're still here. Elections are going to be happening this year. That's going to be one of the most interesting elections. I think we've already had one. We're going to have another one that's definitely going to be interesting. And I'm glad we're starting Zero Trust, because I think that there are going to be so many people on one side or the other, and there's also going to be tertiary and whatever the fourth word of the tertiary is, of camps that are going to be believing, trusting the outcome or not.
Right.
And it's going to be very interesting to just see how that's all
There's going to
go.
be so much for us to talk about in this podcast. I
Yes.
said podcast
Well,
too.
That's fine. And the world too. And that's the other thing that I'm looking forward to is getting information outside our world, right?
Right.
Because that's what another great thing that I see about this. Again, this isn't doomsday. This is actually exciting for me. I love having these conversations. I want to see the truth. I'm searching for the truth. You know, X-Files, like, wasn't a huge X-Files fan. I'm a huge, like, David Duchovny fan. His character in it is always search for truth, regardless of how hard it might be to, like, stomach. Doesn't fucking matter. You know, it's the truth that can help us go forward with those data sets and like, create something more with it. And I think we can gain some wisdom from the past as well and go towards the future with that in mind. So that's... we're getting more to an enlightened age, but it's also a scary age too, whereas more people can be controlled more easily with lesser things, lesser people.
Well,
So
with so much ease and distance, right?
Yes.
In the past, if you really wanted to impress your will on someone, to make them do something, you pretty much had to be there with a sword or a gun. You know, do this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now there's
Take over their
tools to sort of lead them into it where they think it's their idea. I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to go to a Capitol strapped. What kind of person wants to do that? Where did they get that idea?
Well, that is how our country was founded. Yes. So we're going to be talking about many things, not just the coronavirus,
Nope.
not just
This is the coronavirus was the entry point, but it is certainly not the exit. No.
not just a possible failing country or world state. Just the search for truth and what it means to be that, and how to implement zero trust and build from there with a clean data set, almost as clean as it can be.
Yeah.
Right. And be vigilant. I think about it, and diligent. This is going to be fun because I always try to do this anyway. So this is a further, like, opening up my internal world to an external group of people and the world.
Because
and more than one-on-one. Go ahead.
The only way that we're going to be able to succeed and create trust and improve the systems that are broken down is to have this communication, right? Because part of trust is communication, is having this open dialogue and being like, hey, wait a minute, maybe the things that I think are not true. Tell me what you think, and let me evaluate those and see if we can find some common ground that we both are like, yeah, that is true. And now if we both agree it's true, we have a basis to be like, yeah, we can build from there. So when communication breaks down, when you say that side doesn't know anything, they're completely, off the rails, bonkers. And you see this a lot, like, libtards, and like there's all these denigrating ideas that are put down on another ideology to say that anyone who thinks that ideology is insane or stupid.
Yeah,
that's a terrible way to build anything, is to
absolutely
to have that kind of dialogue. So I want to show the world that there can be a different kind of dialogue.
Absolutely, and it'll be good to go into just like why we become so divisive, right? Because we used to be one country. Now it feels like multiple, more two. It feels like there's two stronger sides, but it's a multi-faceted, which we've always really been, but still it's multifaceted, bigger groups. So it's more of a split, divided country. And that'll be interesting to look into as well. But also the world, right?
Yeah.
And what that is too. Yeah. But yeah, I think so. We've been just about an hour.
All right.
So I think it's a good point to stop there. We're gonna put links. We will put links as this is our first cast, and the page was actually created today. So that's awesome. That we'll be getting a lot more stuff up there. There'll be a lot more stuff on the front page. We'll be referencing a YouTube channel as well, and then we'll definitely be having links that we have that Entropy Sword is actually looked into some of the sources that we can use that will start the conversation. By no way means be a dictionary and the authoritative dictionary, because we do not have that and it does not exist. And that's why this cast is here.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks everybody
Any
for
parting
listening.
words?
And this has been awesome. Much love. I appreciate the conversation and your time.
Yeah, look forward to everybody. We'll be advertising more and seeing everybody. So until then, zero trust. Check your sources and talk with the people and see if you can come to some type of conclusion that you can share with us. Thanks,
Absolutely.
everybody.
All right. Thank you.